Most stories want you to believe that good and evil are simple. Heroes save the world, villains try to destroy it. But anime has always told a different kind of story. One where the so-called villains weren't warning signs to ignore. They were mirrors showing the truth no one else wanted to face. This is a look at the characters who weren't just antagonists. They were right about the world they lived in. Pain didn't preach hatred. He preached understanding. The world he grew up in taught him one truth. Every act of violence creates another. Peace wasn't coming, not naturally, not gently, not through speeches. Pain believed the cycle had to be broken by force, a moment of suffering strong enough to make the world finally stop. He wasn't right about the method, but he wasn't wrong about the world. War would never end until someone forced the world to feel the consequences. Makishima didn't want chaos, he wanted humanity back. The Sybil system promised safety but demanded obedience. It decided who people were allowed to be, what they could achieve, and whether their lives were useful before they had even begun. Makishima wasn't fighting a tyrant, he was fighting a world that had forgotten how to think. He believed that a society relying on machines to make moral decisions was no society at all, and in his twisted way, he was right. To most, Askeladd was a monster, calculated, cold, unpredictable. But underneath the blade and the blood was a man carrying a promise. His mother's homeland, Wales, stood on the edge of destruction, surrounded by kingdoms that would swallow it whole. Askeladd knew that noble speeches wouldn't save it, so he became the villain the world needed him to be. He lied, he manipulated, he killed. Not for power, but for a small country that would never survive without someone willing to stain his own hands. In the end, he sacrificed everything, including himself, just so Wales could breathe a little longer. Lelouch never pretended to be a hero. He willingly became the villain because someone had to. A world filled with hatred needed a symbol to aim at, a monster everyone could unite against. He played the role until the end, carrying every scream, every accusation, every drop of blood so the world could have one final moment of peace. He wasn't right because of what he did, he was right because of what it created. Meuem began as a tyrant meant to rule through fear. But the more he understood humanity, the more he saw that strength wasn't measured in power, it was measured in empathy. His evolution wasn't physical, it was emotional. He realized humans didn't need a king, they needed compassion, and in his final moments he became something no one expected, a ruler finally worthy of being followed. Like Yagami saw a world drowning in injustice, criminals walking free, systems failing the innocent, and no one brave enough to change it. His methods consumed him, his god complex destroyed him. The seed of his goal, the idea that the world was broken, wasn't wrong. He just thought he was the only one worthy of fixing it. Stain's message wasn't about violence, it was about truth. Hero society had become a stage, filled with performers chasing fame instead of lives worth saving. He hunted hypocrisy, not heroes. Pain believed that a world where hero was a job title instead of a calling was destined to collapse. And in many ways, he was the first one to see it coming. Eren wasn't born with hatred. He was born into a world where hatred was the air people breathed. Every side was raised on violence. Every nation was taught the other was the enemy. Eren saw a future where his people would never survive. Not because they were evil, but because the world refused to forgive them. The rumbling wasn't mercy, it wasn't justice, but in Eren's eyes, it was survival, a terrible choice in a world that offered none. Scar's vengeance didn't begin with rage, it began with grief. His people were erased, their culture burned, their lives taken in a genocide justified as necessary. Scar didn't want destruction, he wanted balance. He struck back not from hatred of the innocent, but from a world that refused to acknowledge its sins. He wasn't just right, he was justified. Geto saw a truth sorcerers refused to admit. Curses came from people who feared what they didn't understand. Sorcerers suffered to protect a world that didn't even know it needed saving. Geto believed that if the source of curses disappeared, sorcerers would finally be free. He wasn't right about the solution, but he was right about the burden sorcerers carried. Villains like this weren't born wicked. They were shaped by the worlds that failed them. Some chose destruction, some chose sacrifice, some chose control. But all of them understood one thing. Sometimes the world is so broken, the only path left looks like villainy. If this made you rethink who the real villains are, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. This is AnimeVaultHub, where the hype never sleeps.